Okay, let me start now. Before I hand over to our moderator, I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping with you. Just for your information, this session will be recorded and made available on demand. And following this DWP KnowNow webinar, the on-demand recording, the presentation slides, and also the session summary will be published on the Voice of the Danube website. And everyone that has registered to this webinar will also receive this information via email. Just for your info, please use the chat box for general requests and also interactions with other participants. And also, for example, to introduce yourself. And in case you would like to post a question, please use the Q&A box. Please note that we cannot accept a raise hand because your microphones are muted. And with that, I would like to hand over to our moderator, Christian Hasenleitner. He's the General Manager of Energie AG Bohemia. So Christian, over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the introduction. I'm also like to welcome everyone who is participating on this afternoon, all the, let's say, affected persons and companies affected by the current situation on the energy markets, which is quite unbelievable what happens. But coming back to that later on. We are talking today about the rising costs of inaction, and we four would like to give you an overview on these options which are on the table to secure and improve energy supply. We have from the US, Washington, DC, Mr. Christopher Welsin. He is a specialist for water supply and sanitation from the World Bank. It's great to have you here. We will hear a lot of about options to reduce energy consumption and to be more efficient in this level. Then from the utility side, we have Mr. Sokol Jafar. He is CEO of the regional water company of Pristina in Kosovo. And of course, as a lot of participants today, highly affected by the current situation. And last but not least, Vesna Muslic, strongly related to DLIP and Danube Water Program and president of Aquasan Network from Bosnia Herzegovina. So it's I'm looking forward to your input, your presentations, and before I hand over to Chris, I will share my screen and maybe give you a short input what we are talking about. I hope you can see my presentations. So as you all know, we already have quite turmoils on energy markets. And I allowed myself not to show you what are the impacts, not just on water, but also on the heating sector, just to show you that we water people are not alone with these problems. There are others, or a lot of others also affected by it. And I would like to give you a short introduction. What's the situation, or I have to say, what was the situation throughout the last year? You can see the development of energy prices for electricity in Central Europe in 22 for electricity and for gas. Both commodities used by water companies. And you can see the development over the year. This is the calendar year 22, sorry, the development of the prices throughout this year. So you can see that from the beginning of the year to the end of December of the last year, there was already a price increase of about 250% in the electricity. In gas, even more dramatic, plus 350%. And that is a situation we didn't see, at least in the last 10 years. And of course, it affects us in a huge way. Today, every day it's getting harder to have a look on this chart because the increase goes on and goes on, especially throughout the last days with the Ukraine crisis and the invasion done by Russia. Of course, it's also having even when energy is still flowing to Central Europe from Russia via, for example, Ukraine, there's another huge increase, a huge step upwards of the energy prices. So today, when you look to the prices, we have a price for electricity of about 260 euro per megawatt hour, which is an increase now of plus 430% to the last year, or to the lower parts of the last year. And even more dramatic in gas, 120 euro per megawatt hours, increase of plus 670%. So, and the question is what to do in this situation. We still need electricity, we still need gas, and we have to purchase it anyway, but maybe we will come back later to this. I think we have two issues to discuss or to talk about and discuss today. One issue is how can we secure the energy supply for this period or for the next year or for this year, 22 and 23. What are potential steps to reduce risks? And I think it's a major topic that I would see it on the short term. On the long term, we have to have a look on the efficiency of our plants, of our supply, and what can we do to get more efficient, and also to produce electricity or energy by ourselves. So I would focus today's discussion on these two topics. On one hand, securing the supply, on the other, and in the short term, on the other hand, in the long term, efficiency and supplying ourselves with all means available. And I think Chris will start with the second part. Being more self-sufficient and improving ourselves. And I would invite him now to share his presentation and to start with his keynote and input.
Well, thank you so much, Christian. I think those are very interesting charts and very alarming charts, actually. Initially, I hope you can see my screen now. I think I need to just here.
Display settings, Chris. Display settings on the top, please.
Yeah.
And swap.
There you go. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Christopher Welsing. I've been with the World Bank for more than 10 years and worked in different countries for what we call the water global practice of the water sector. And I must say that traditionally the World Bank has not really focused on energy efficiency. The water sector in the World Bank, we're about 400 people. We haven't had projects specifically focused on energy efficiency, or actually very, very few of them. So maybe I can just give you a short introduction to why, in my career, why I felt suddenly so compelled to bring on energy efficiency and why I'm leading a team now on energy efficiency. So I traveled to Panama actually 4 or 5 years ago, and I realized that the largest utility in Panama was the national utility rather, was the largest consumer of energy in the country, which I found very interesting. Then I worked a little bit with the Philippines, and I realized that this Manila Water company that serves more than 6 million people had never done a comprehensive energy audit. To the recollection of the engineers, they had never really focused on energy audits, energy efficiency in a systematic way, which I thought was interesting. Then in Ethiopia, I was supporting a project, and I realized that more than 30% of the energy for the entire city, or capital city of Addis, was consumed by the water utility. So just through my career, I've had these small blips of surprising facts, really, that brought me into establishing a small team that focused now solely on energy efficiency. So let's shift gears, because we carried out a desktop analysis of some of the data that we have a few years ago. And this was the outcome of that exercise. The data was not perfect, but we managed to at least look at these countries, and we are quite confident that what you're looking at here is more or less the reality on the ground. So what we really wanted to see was, if we could take energy, how large a cost is that for the utilities budget? And of course, we know that most of these utilities, they're huge cost on labor. So if we take out the labor component, which most utilities cannot do anything about, what is the non-labor operating ratio, operating cost when it comes to electricity cost? And we found that it's more than 50% in many countries, and in some countries it's 80%. So if in terms of these utilities, municipalities operating their utilities in a cost-efficient way, and also for them to be more credit-worthy, energy efficiency should be the number one, if you ask me, the number one priority for utilities. Very recently, we carried out a data collection to dig a little bit further into this in Ukraine, and we are doing it hoping to do it in other Eastern European countries going forward. Of course, the situation has changed in Ukraine, but I think I'll just give you the data for these 7 large Ukrainian utilities. So I think from my perspective, from the World Bank perspective, I look at the overarching trends. So when we look at non-revenue water, for instance, you can see that many utilities are struggling with non-revenue water. And as we all know, non-revenue water is directly related to energy efficiency and energy cost. And if you look at this chart, it's quite alarming to see that, but we know the situation. Everybody is sort of struggling with the same problems: deferred maintenance, leaking pipes, consumers not efficiently paying for water, etc. So when I look at this chart, I also see a real opportunity for utilities to focus in an area and really generate some savings and improve their operations. So if you have 50% of non-revenue water, the first 10% reduction is actually fairly easy. And then if you look at more professional utilities that have non-revenue water at 10 or 8%, bringing that down to just 1% is very difficult. But if you have 49% non-revenue water, the first 5-10 is a really easy opportunity to move your efficiency forward if you have the capital to do it, the financing options. Another metric which I found easy to understand and easy to communicate is when we look at the age of the pumping system. So we basically ask these utilities to, for every pumping system, please indicate the age of the pumps. And you can see here, this is the average pumping life or pumping age of these pumps in these utilities. So you have utilities where the average age is 44 years. And the average among all these utilities that we carried out this exercise is actually 25 years. So in these Ukrainian utilities, and we see the same case in other countries, in Africa, in Asia, pumps, as soon as they're working, are not replaced. So that's, for me, from an energy efficiency point of view, a huge opportunity to really generate some significant savings on pump replacement, and also including some newer technologies, which I'll come back to in a second. So the reason why we are focused on energy efficiency now is that we see the same situation across the globe almost, that utilities do not have, they have old and old pumping systems that could be modernized but are not modernized. So what we see here is a really across the board in the operation opportunities to reduce cost. So there are electric losses, there are motor losses, there are pump losses, there are head losses, there are leakages, meaning that, you know, the utilities are not running their operation in an energy efficient way. So there's a huge need for investments in this area and focus in this area. What I've seen is that many chief engineers, when a pump is working, they're not so concerned about the efficiency. If that pump produces water and is, you know, the whole system is pumping water, they're not so focused on the energy efficiency, which come back to the first slide I showed you on the Manila water in the Philippines, where they had not done a comprehensive energy audit in the lifetime of the utility. Because to an engineer, if it's working, it's fine. And that's really what we want to come in and try to have a real conversation now that we have an energy crisis about an increased focus on energy efficiency. So I'm not going to go through all the various modern techniques, etc., that are, but just list a few here. So pump replacement is, of course, I think the go-to energy efficiency measure for engineers, for utilities. Variable speed drives, and something that you might know as, you know, power factor correctors. And these capacitors, we realized in some utilities, have a payback on investment down to 3 months. So that's an area which maybe some engineers are not looking at, but if you really want to save on your investment, the power factor correctors are a very good place to start. Then, of course, we can look at water loss management technologies, reducing non-revenue water, and there are new technologies, and they're not even new anymore, that has, you know, leak reduction. There are pumps that can, where you can measure or control the pressure so that you have less pressure in the pipe and that the consumer is not feeling it. So pressure management with advanced pumping systems, which is something that has a very low return on investment as well. And we, of course, have many of your utilities already have the SCADA systems. And when it comes to wastewater treatment, we see similar opportunities to reduce energy costs. So it's on the pumping side, but it's just as much on the wastewater treatment side. And then demand side efficiency, which is basically if the utility has an opportunity of turning off certain pumps that might be pumping into a water reservoir, water storage, etc., to think about when you're pumping. Are you pumping during the day? For in some countries that the tariff is very high, or can you move some of the pumping to the nighttime where the pumping is cheaper? So overall, we see that these investments in energy efficiency typically have a payback period between 2 months and 5 years. So really attractive investment all around. And maybe just one takeaway from energy efficiency. So this was done by another consultancy, but I thought this slide is so fantastic. So you have a motor running at high efficiency, 91%. Okay, that's fine, that's successful. But actually, if you look at the combined efficiency, motor and pump, it's 59%. And then if you look at the system efficiency, you're all the way down to 13%. So this is a very important takeaway, that you might think that your system is running efficiently, but if you do an energy audit, if you do a comprehensive energy audit, there is huge savings. There could be huge savings in your systems. And that's why we are trying to educate utilities and chief engineers that don't only look at the motor or the pump. When you look at energy efficiency, you have to look at it holistically. And we have to move away of just replacing single pumps than actually thinking holistically about the systems and have a system approach to energy efficiency. So just a short summary here. What I really wanted to get across is that the water sector consumes a lot of energy. That energy cost is a huge part of the OPEX expenditure, and reductions are possible, savings in energy are possible in most utilities between 20 and 50%. We actually had cases where it's 55% with a very lucrative return on investment. Okay, so if we look overall is for the sector in Eastern Europe, how much money is really needed, which for me as a world banker, which I have sort of a step back approach because I'm sitting more globally and looking at many utilities at the same time. So we did these analyses and we just to focus on Bulgaria and Ukraine, because that's where we've done some of the analysis. We see that the efficiency need is estimated at, for Bulgaria, around $156 million. And for Ukraine, we think it's in the range of $300 to $500 million. So this is, to me, a wake-up call, because I think the sector has been used to thinking, oh, we'll replace a few pumps, or we'll ask the EU for a little bit of grant money to help one or two utilities. But when we look at the financing gap for the entire urban water sector, we are talking about in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, a financing gap or a financing potential of $3 to $11 billion. So $3 to $11 billion, to me, that really is a humbling number. And it's a number where we then think, well, the World Bank do certainly not have that kind of capacity. And normally we move into a country with maybe between $50 and $200 million, and the energy efficiency component is a small component for maybe $20 million. And it's the same with the EU and other donors. So my team is just asking the question, where will this, how will we close this gap if we're looking for investments of $5, $10 billion? So then that's when we started to think, well, how is this going to be solved? So this
Chris,
is what
maybe
I call.
you can have a look on the time, maybe another 5 minutes maximum.
Okay, thank you, Christian. So we look quickly and just, okay, what is the situation? Water utilities are energy efficient. Investments in energy efficiency have short payback periods. It's a win-win for everybody. Utilities have, of course, as we know, limited cash flow, borrowing capacity, to invest in energy efficiency. So what we're looking at is a situation where almost nothing happens. That there is not enough capital to address this issue. So what should we do? So let me just bring you a case for Uzbekistan, where a major international pump manufacturer has gone in, invested in energy audits, and developed a ESCO, so an energy service company type arrangement where the private sector makes the investment. There's a performance-based contract. They make the investment at no cost to the utility. And the utility is then using the the savings they get from their energy bill to pay back the company. So this is referred to as the ESCO model. I think many of you are familiar with it, and we can discuss in more detail how this works. But this is what we see as the solution going forward, where the private sector comes in with large-scale financing across perhaps many utilities. They invest, and the utilities do not have to pay anything. They just have to use the savings in their energy bill to pay back the private sector over maybe 5 years. So to me, this is one of the last slides. What is required from this investment mechanism? Well, it has to be cash flow neutral to the utility. It must be able to solve the problem at scale, because we're looking at billions of dollars. And we may have to do this without doing a comprehensive energy audit for each utility. Because even the energy audits, if you look at it, is a lot of investment which we might not have. So this is the last slide. So what we are proposing is moving forward with private sector investment between $10 to $100 million on a design, build, finance, operate, transfer arrangement. The contract duration could be between 5 to 15 years, and we're using this energy performance contract shared savings model, the ESCO model. And the World Bank, we're not trying to make any money, not that we're really a donor, but we could step in with a guarantee mechanism for the private sector. So that's really one of the only opportunities, as I see it. If we don't invite the private sector in, I don't see how the sector can find $3 to $11 billion. So that was some thoughts from me from the World Bank, our latest thinking. So thank you so much, Christian, for giving me the opportunity, and Katie, of course. I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Christopher, thanks a lot. Very, very impressive presentation and input on one hand of the problem, but also on the other hand of the side of solving these problems. Thanks a lot. Coming now to practical situation and experiences from Pristina. Sokol, may I hand over to you?
Thank you, Christian. Good afternoon to everyone. It's a great pleasure being part of this panel discussion. Actually, as the biggest water company in Kosovo, as maybe all of you now already know, because we are quite present on Danube or danubis.org with benchmarking reporting. We have quite a great, let's say, energy consumption. Basically, we spend more than 20% of our total revenues just for the energy bills. Unfortunately, as a water utility, we have to pump every single liter of water, depends from surface or underground water source, but we have to pump at least once, and for some certain customers, we pump even 5 times on intermittent booster pumping stations. Basically, as Chris mentioned also, I want just to compare to also our international reports that we report not only to the water regulatory here in Kosovo, but also at the benchmarking report, compared to the, let's say, to the labor cost. We are divided, let's say, 50 by 50. 50% of labor cost, it costs to us just the energy consumption. We have 72 pumping stations into our system, managing to 2,200 kilometers of distribution network. Unfortunately, in Western Balkans, we all know that the non-revenue water is quite a crucial issue. And compare now to also increase the cost of energy, now is becoming harder and harder to manage and to overcome these situations. As a utility, we were trying to bring on some, not let's say new ideas, but approach that we are seeing all over the world. As I want just to refer to the measures that Chris mentioned. On 2018, together as a technical director as I was technical director for 4 years here at the utility, we developed a strategy to install photovoltaic panels. Unfortunately, we couldn't succeed to allocate funds to invest, but we already observed 3 main locations that we can install these. Hopefully, we will have commitment from the donors in one side and then some co-financing in order to overcome the situation. But compared to the rest of the let's say Europe, we have another problem in Kosovo. Up to now, the energy market was not, actually they tried 2 or 3 years ago, the regulator of energy to move into the liberalization of the energy market. But nobody succeeded on it, as far as we still have just one distribution company for the power. And basically, it was decided on 2019 to move for the big utilities or big customers, mainly on industry and trade, on a liberal energy market. The offers that we received for a single entity, for a single distribution company, we faced more than 30% of increase on energy. Hopefully, we will overcome somehow this situation, because on this year, due to energy crisis, the domestic customers faced an increase of energy tariffs. Basically, more or less more than 50% the tariffs has been increased for domestic customers, but not yet for businesses and industries. Of course, we are fair that at one moment we will face the same, but up to now, the energy, let's say the tariffs are keeping the same due to a pandemic situation, because water utilities, as all utilities, faced the pandemic situation for 2 years now on. And coming this energy issue now, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's becoming harder and harder. The measures that we already took, we are installing everywhere VFDs, variable frequency drivers, on pumping stations. And just also to refer again to Chris, we are also replacing some pumps. Basically, I have to confirm that also in Pristina utility, we have pumps installed, some of them even on 1965, in some cases 1980s mainly, and then on 2000, just after the war on 1999 that we had. Unfortunately, at that time, some of the pumping stations were occupied at that time during the war, so some of them, they were bombed by NATO, and then we had, as a utility, we had to overcome that emergency situation on 1999. Since then, we basically 22 years old, there are pumps installed. And for 2 years, we are replacing each by each, but for sure there are quite big engines on them, 800 kV, for instance, some of the biggest pumping stations. And basically it's a huge cost, but we have to go through these. Mainly these are the key issues, and then non-revenue water, I will let for Vesna to speak, as far as they are leading the Danube hub for this one. Thank you, Chris and Christian.
Thanks a lot, Sokol, for this quite wide overview on the market side, or on the monopole side. I have to say, you still seem to have on the electricity supply at last, but also on the measures taken already from your company to reduce electricity consumption. Thanks a lot. And handing over now to Vesna for her input from Bosnia-Herzegovina. Vesna?
Thank you. Once again, good day to everyone. It is really a great pleasure to participate in this webinar on this so important topic. Just briefly, for those who don't know, a few words about AKOSI network in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are the association gathering experts in the field of water and environmental protection in Bosnia and Herzegovina, focusing our work on advocating and lobbying for improvements in the water service sector here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, both regulatory changes, but also changes in practices and capacity development. When it comes to this particular topic, as we all know, the increasing demand for quality water services actually leads to the increasing demand for energy, because energy is consumed in drinking water production and distribution, in wastewater collection and treatment. Of course, energy requirements in water supply systems and wastewater systems are influenced by the operational efficiency of water infrastructure, type of water input, climate, topographical features, patterns of water consumption. But the water service sector, as we all know, is generally a large consumer of energy. So the question is how to achieve and maintain quality delivery of water services with minimum energy input. Reducing high non-revenue water levels is exactly the opportunity to minimize energy requirements. Needless to say, high non-revenue water levels, as we all know, contribute to exceeding exploitation of water resources and seriously affect financial sustainability of water utilities because of revenues lost and increased operating costs, including energy costs. In other words, energy is lost along with the water, and therefore reducing high non-revenue water levels is a must. Average level of non-revenue water in Bosnia and Herzegovina is 49%, reaching even above 70% in some water supply systems. Part of the reasons are, as elsewhere, time-worn and outdated water service infrastructure. We have just heard from Chris' presentation about average age of pumping. It is also due to improperly designed systems, be it oversized or undersized water supply systems. It is also because of selection of inappropriate equipment, but it is also because of lack of awareness about impacts of such a high non-revenue water levels, including impact of high non-revenue water levels of energy costs, as well as lack of capacities of water utilities, both operational staff and management staff, to address such a high non-revenue water levels. We have learned from the Chris presentation that electricity costs are the largest operating costs for most water utilities worldwide and make between 30, if I remember correctly, between 30 and 80% of non-labor operating costs. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, energy costs make about 9% of total costs for water utilities, which is really significant. And therefore, undertaking energy efficiency measures gives water utilities the opportunity to manage operational costs and to enhance their operational sustainability without compromising the quality of services they deliver to their citizens, to service users. On the other side, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, although some water utilities, but the situation is same in the region, do implement these energy efficiency measures, majority of them is still lacking skills to produce and analyze energy data. We all know that in order to address technical issues such as non-revenue water or electricity consumption, we need reliable data that are obtained by measuring water flow, water pressure, electricity consumption. But most of water utilities are not capable to undertake internal energy audits on their own and to present results of these energy audits to their decision makers so that these decision makers can make informed investment decisions. And this is why we consider capacity development programs for water utilities that are developed through the Danube Learning Partnership, meaning DWP capacity development programs for non-revenue water and for energy efficiency, that they are so important. These programs actually help water utilities to gain through both in classroom, but also on the field learning, theoretical and practical knowledge and skills, how to upgrade their policies and practices with regards to non-revenue water management and energy efficiency. We in ACLASAN, we so far have implemented 3 cycles of non-revenue water trainings with over 30 water utilities from entire Bosnia and Herzegovina participating in these programs. And we also implemented so far 1 cycle of energy efficiency training, DWP energy efficiency training. When I say 1 cycle, it means 3 workshops in a row, which include, as I said, both in classroom, but also on the field learning. This energy efficiency, DWP energy efficiency capacity development program actually enabled the participating water utilities to enhance their capacities for energy efficiency management. and to gain to gain knowledge and skills on how to conduct energy audits and how to prepare reports on energy audits for pumping stations in particular, and also how to develop action plans for improving energy efficiency in their water utilities. So such action plans actually serve water utilities to identify and to implement most appropriate measures to reduce energy costs, and in such to support their operational and financial sustainability. So at this point, I will stop, and I'm open for all questions and any clarifications if needed.
Thank you so much for your input. We are quite good on time. We have enough time for discussion, questions. We didn't receive anyone up to now, so maybe again to the participants, if you have any question, feel free to put them in the Q&A section. In the meantime, maybe I also come back to some ideas from my side, because what we've seen now, there was already a lot of input concerning, of course, the main target points like energy efficiency, non-revenue water, etc. I would like to share again my presentation. I started with from the beginning. Give me a minute. Yeah, should already work. I hope so. So from this frightening picture, maybe moving on to the next slide. I tried for my company to show what effect this increase in the prices will have or could have on the tariffs. So in the past, for example, in 2020, we had energy costs of about euro 9 million per year. At the beginning of this year, we expected doubling of this amount due to the price development I already showed to you. And if I do this calculation for today, we are talking, it's doubling again. So we are talking now about 40 million euros a year. And if I would put this mainly electricity to the water side and gas to the heating side, this would mean just out of the increase of energy prices, there would be an increase in the water tariffs of up to 10% and up to way above 100% in the heating sector. So we are really, and I think it's more or less the same picture for each utility in the Danube region in facing the current situation. We really see a huge problem and influence, which will also come at the end, of course, to the customers. And again, I think a little bit underrated solution for this problem, which also can be adapted in quite a limited time, is what Christopher suggested. It's this form of performance-based contracts to improve the situation. So to get finance from a private sector participant, from a private partner, and to pay back the investment, via the contractual period. I think, Chris, that was the idea or the concept, which is widely known in the sector, but as far as I'm aware of, it's not used so heavily as it could be used and should be used. We have, there are coming in now several questions, and I pass it on to Vesna. It's a question to Vesna and Sokol. It's from Rado Rusev. Are utilities in your countries encouraged to reduce non-revenue water exactly at water-intensive supply systems? So may I ask you to give a response on that?
I can start if you want. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, they're not encouraged. If under encouraged, you mean if there are some regulations or something. So non-revenue water and reduction of non-revenue water as such is not specifically regulated in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Mm-hmm. Is there any let's say is it maybe forced or are regulators looking on the issue?
We do not have a regulator in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yeah, or authorities or municipalities, or is it a topic that let's say it's a form of operational quality, or it's seen as a form of operational quality to have low leakage rates?
This is actually what we are doing. We are firstly really working from the bottom. As I said earlier, making them aware what high non-revenue water is about its environmental impact, about its financial impact, its social impact, its technical impact. I mean, because of the pipes and everything. So we are really looking from the bottom, making them aware what the non-revenue water and energy efficiency is about, and making them aware how to easily calculate investments in non-revenue water and payback of these investments and an energy efficiency. It is our experience, if I may just add, and then Sokol can say his experience from Kosovo. Our experience is that investments in energy efficiency are the most easy to calculate. This ESCO, it is the easiest way to calculate a return on investment in energy efficiency. It is more complicated with non-revenue water, but with energy efficiency, it's very simple math. And this math is actually that we are using in advocating with authorities at all levels, you know, that something should be done, that some regulations should be imposed if water utilities are not doing that on their own, as they should, after all, no need, because they should realize what it does to their financial sustainability.
Sokol?
Well, referring to Vesna, actually, the regulatory office to us, they set the goal for the non-revenue water. It's quite an issue to us because it's not just the energy issue, but in Kosovo and also in Pristina specifically, we have a problem also for the water scarce. Basically, we don't have enough water sources to cover the whole zone, let's say 24/7. We really do it since 2017, but we are struggling every year to take measures. The non-revenue water is quite an issue. Energy efficiency as well. The measures that we already took, as I mentioned before, to install VFDs, and in order to see actually the replacement of the pumps, how it affects, it gives quite a good result. Compared from 2019 to 2020, we saved somewhere around 5 million kVs annually. But we are still paying more than 7,000 euros on daily basis, meaning 2.4 to 2.6 million euros annually just for the power. And it's still an issue, but I think nowadays we have to work parallelly. Basically, it's a target for non-revenue water, and all of us, let's say, water utilities in Kosovo are specifically focused on non-revenue water. If we achieve to reduce this, then we are quite okay. The certain measures that was mentioning before in order to pump, let's say, during the night and to save during the day on peak consumption, for us, it's quite impossible because distribution tanks installed in the distribution zone within the cities are so small that we can't accumulate the demand for the day, and basically we have to pump all day long, all night long, all year, let's say, 24/7. We have to pump every single second. It's not easy, but there are some lights, let's say, by the end of the tunnel that we can do something on saving. But first of all, we have to focus on non-revenue water. We consume somewhere around 0.5 kV per hour just on treatment and on initial distribution, meaning from the treatment plant to the distribution tanks. And then compared to the revenues and to the build cubic meters of water, we are using at least 1 kV per hour per cubic meter of water, let's say, to distribute to all customers as an average energy consumption. All these we can compare to the rest, but compared to the utilities abroad, we are not in a good position on this, and for sure we have to be focused also on energy savings. And yeah, energy audit is one of the issues we already did with one program on DWP on 2018. It is a software red screen. We were using this for some pumping stations. Yeah, time by time we didn't do a proper sizing of them while we were calculating, let's say, the curve efficiency of the pump itself. And then it's not just a pump, it's also the fittings, the height, and there are a lot of analyses that we have to do. So basically, we have to work on different fields.
Thank you, Sokol. Another question to Vesna from Cliffhammer. Are these trainings you already mentioned and you are providing, do they put the utilities in a state that they are really able at the end to develop action plans or measures, and also mobilizing financial resources for implementing these measures? Can you say something about that? Or do you need maybe additional support?
Yes, this DWP energy capacity development for energy efficiency, it's basically a cycle of 3 workshops lasting altogether 4 days. In between, the participants are applying what they learned during these workshops. So they need support from trainers to basically apply what they learn. After they have this action plan, they get the action plan for energy efficiency, for increasing energy efficiency in their water utility. After they have this action plan, they need further support. So basically, what we do, we teach them how to develop action plan, what they need, how to identify measures. But if they want to implement these measures, they do need exactly as you say, more technical support. Because in 4 days, you can just not learn and teach everything that it takes, years to learn. So the answer is they make the first step, they make the action plan with support of the trainers, but then they need further technical support to start implementing these action plans.
Thanks for that.
Can I answer to your question, Cliff?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think you also answered at least partly a question. A very dear guest in our today's meeting asked, Phil Weller is here. Well, welcome, Phil. Good to see you at least here on the Q&A section. I think every one of us is happy to have you still with us in this format. And Phil also asked, is it necessary to have a certain structure in the utility, a team, a responsibility, a clear responsibility before the investment in equipment can be made? And I think, or maybe I can immediately take it over. I think, of course, it's necessary, and I think that's one of the tasks and goals also of the water program, to develop exactly this know-how in the associations and in the companies, that these people then can use their knowledge and move on with certain measures. What I'm still a little bit missing, and I'm maybe also referring to a question Raimund Meyer posted, is the link between measures, investments, and this performance contracting solution Chris presented before. Because my impression is, and that's maybe a general one of the water sector, that a lot of experts in the utilities are doing, of course, their best to solve the problems and to bring the utility forward. But at the end, it's one problem of many, and often cannot or isn't be solved because the position of this person is not strong enough, or there are simply not the means to do it, or the priority is not that high, or there are other priorities which come first. So and on the other hand, there is a solution, also a solution for the investment, and there seem to be a little bit, I would say, people seem to be on one hand curious, on the other hand seem to feel that could be a danger or couldn't work. And that's my feeling or my impression also of something I heard today, but also what I experienced in the sector. So if I'm right, maybe Chris can add something to this. But if I'm right, are there any ideas to improve the implementation of such performance case projects? Maybe Chris, you can take over for that.
No, I would love to, and I think very few of us wants to include the private sector at scale. I think most of us would like the utilities to be able to handle the investments themselves and make investments, and then use the revenue from more tariffs to invest in and modernize the system. So I think all the utilities we speak to around the world, they like to do it themselves. But when we look at the problem, we don't see that possibility. So if we look at the overarching problem, I think we don't have a choice. If we have to raise billions of dollars specifically for energy efficiency, I think that's the only real solution to solve the problem that we see. So, okay, so how can we effectively involve the private sector? I think it's very difficult from utility to utility to set up these agreements. First of all, because there has to be an energy audit. Second of all, there has to be a bidding. You have to set up the bidding, which is quite complicated. And often the times, the private investor, like the case in Uzbekistan, is not comfortable with the creditworthiness of the utility. So that means that even if both parties would want to, that bid cannot be executed. And that's, I think, where the World Bank can come in and help. I think we can try to aggregate these deals to make it more attractive for the private sector. And I think we can provide guarantee mechanisms and help the utilities connect with Ministry of Finance and use some guarantee, it doesn't have to be ours, but use guarantee mechanisms that gives the private sector comfort to invest at a very, very high scale. So I think we and with our partners are in a situation where we can convene these deals, and that's why we started to do in Uzbekistan. That's what we started to do in Ukraine. And actually, one of the reasons I came on here is that I would like to send an invitation to you that if you are interested, we would love to work with the more utilities in Eastern Europe. We would really like to work with you. And one of the first steps is data collection. And we have developed a very simple data collection tool. You saw some of the results before, just non-revenue water, age of pumping systems, how many pumping systems. Once we have that data, we will develop that into an investment case and work closer with you. So the first step from this webinar, if you're interested, is to reach out to Katie, reach out to me and say, okay, our utility or our list of utilities are interested, and then we'll start to work with you. So you know, there are barriers, but I think we can work through them. But the first step is this, you know, collaboration and data collection. Over.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just can underline what you just said. We as a private operator in the Czech Republic, we just set up last year an investment fund for energy efficiency measures in the broad sense. So this could mean investing into photovoltaic production or putting new blowers in a wastewater treatment plant or improving the cleaning process, the complete investing into the improvement of a cleaning process of a complete wastewater treatment plants. But in this case, we are not owner of the infrastructure, so we are just operator. And we see how difficult it is also to convince our municipal partners to go into such models and to do it. And I think it's really a challenge to bring together potential investors and institutions doing guarantees on one hand, and the utilities on the other hand, who need this or who want to do something or who want to improve their energy efficiency. So what I'm missing still is there a marketplace for project ideas or solutions like this, and maybe that's a future task or a future option. I would say a future chance also for the Danube Water Program to maybe also to bring together providers for solutions like this and utilities who are in the need of solutions like that. I think it's also for me lessons learned. We see this tremendous need and we see also that the utilities and the associations, as we heard it from Vesna and Sokol, want to bring their utility or their utilities, their member utilities. They want to develop it. They want to bring it forward. And Christopher, as you said, there's that it's not the question, should we do it? It's not the question. The question is we have to do it also in this dramatic situation we are facing today in Europe, in all the areas we can see when we have a look to the actual situation on the energy market. Yeah, I think we are slowly but surely coming to an end, and I think I already did some wrap up right now. We have another question here from Adam Kovac. Are energy recovery technologies like sewage sludge management considered and promoted besides energy saving actions? Does any one of you want to reply on that? So
well, just for your information, to us, we are still developing wastewater treatment plants in Pristina, for instance. We are already we will sign within these days a contract for the consultancy service for the biggest wastewater treatment plant, because we don't have a centralized one. We have just some small scale wastewater treatment plants. We considered incineration to incinerate the whole sludge in order to produce. But that was one of the options that came in during the study.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I can add also from our company. So we are doing this, or in the Czech Republic, these energy audits have to be done obligatory. So we have to do it anyway for the plants we are operating. And of course, goal of all this is at the end to put out measures and to implement them afterwards. I think we are there on already quite a good way, but we cannot stop acting because of the rising energy prices at the end. That's what bothers me most, because we all are facing it throughout the next years. Part of this is also, of course, the whole cycle of wastewater cleaning, and related to this again, the sludge treatment, sludge handling, and reuse or use or incineration or whatever is useful and possible on site. Of course, when we are talking about water sector, we are talking not just about non-revenue water or pumping, but we are also talking about sewage and wastewater treatment.
Can I just come in here? I think that's such a critical question. I think that that's exactly also what we want to move into. Now the problem for sludge management, as I see it, is that the return on investment is not between 1 or 5 years. It's more between maybe 10 to 15 to 20 years, depending on the gate fee that is charged. And often if you're moving to a more sophisticated level of treatment and you're paying the same gate fee, there's a financial issue there for many utilities. But this is critical, and it's also, we have to find the financial tools for this. So to me, and I think for many of my World Bank colleagues, we are slowly realizing that the advanced technologies are out there. It's not that we don't see the modernization potential. There are very advanced technologies out there that are very energy efficient, that have good return on investment. But it's more that we have to change our mentality for doing civil and electric engineering, water engineering, to do financial engineering. I think the financial part is where we have to do some innovation from our side. And I'm speaking on behalf of the water sector. We have to be more innovative when it comes to financial solutions, financial engineering. And I think that's where maybe the sector as a whole there's a gap there that we have to push forward. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, completely agree with that. At last, another very interesting question from Rafael Heredero. Do you consider greenhouse gas emissions associated to the energy efficiency measures also in the frame of the energy audit? We talked up to now, we talked about costs for energy, and but we didn't touch greenhouse gas emissions, which also will be a target for the future. I yesterday read an article on the EU taxonomy guideline, which is already in place and which will focus on benchmarks like this. So I think it's also a task for the water sector to deal with the issue, especially when we are talking about pricing of CO2 emissions, for example. Chris, can you give us more on that issue?
Yeah, and of course it's a huge benefit to what we are trying to do. The way I'm looking at it, and I'm just speaking personally, is that the greenhouse gas emission is something globally we want to address. But if we look at the actual utilities, what kind of issues they are facing, their daily struggle, I think it's much easier to talk about this topic than just talk about, you know, what are your operating costs? What are your financials? And then pitch the energy efficiency measures as wide as can be as cost measures that is good sense investment for the utility. We don't even have to go to greenhouse gas emission, because I think many utilities are struggling so hard just on the day-to-day. So if you start to talk to them about greenhouse gas emissions, and you should, you know, that's a dream for them. But, you know, we can even boil it down to just simple cost measures. And of course, then we would have the positive externalities, as they say, of greenhouse gas emission. But I think we can just boil it down to what there are some cost savings here that would help the utility. That's how I personally look at it.
Thanks a lot. I think we couldn't end this KnowNow what we performed today on energy better with that what you just mentioned. Maybe let me summarize with the last sentence. I think we as utilities have to do everything possible to reduce our demand by implementing maximum energy efficiency measures. I think that's of course target number one, and I ask everyone to use each available tool to come forward with the issue. And maybe that's also a task for Danube Water Program to deal with the issue, also thinking on a marketplace or something like this. And on the other hand, the second part is also reduce your dependency on energy supply and energy suppliers by implementing your own production capacities, using biogas, investing into photovoltaic, whatever is drinking water, hydropower plants, whatever is possible out of the local situation. I think that's the task, even or especially in days like we have it now. From my side, I thank you three for participating, giving your inputs. I hope for all the participants we could put interesting or could show an interesting picture of the situation, but also of solutions. And let me end with a big thank you also for the organization, and let's have fingers crossed for all the Ukrainians that this crisis and this war, which was forced by Putin and Russia, comes to an end in very soon time. Thanks a lot, and handing over to Kati.
Yeah, thank you, Christian, and also from my side to all the panelists for this very interesting webinar. I think we have touched an important topic also from the discussion that I could watch now over the last 75 minutes. Just for your information, we have 2 more upcoming events on energy. The first one is the next DWP KnowNow edition, which is scheduled for early May. And coming back to Adam's question, this is about energy and wastewater. So stay tuned for that one. And finally, also please save the date for the upcoming 2022 Danube Water Forum, which will take place on 28th to 29th June in Tirana in Albania, and it will be a physical event. So mark your calendars and don't miss it. And the topic of the forum will be energy and water. And finally, just to stay tuned and to know what's going on, also, for example, the exact dates of the upcoming KnowNow webinar, etc., please register on the Voice of the Danube to receive the latest information regarding our events. Yeah, and with that, I would like to thank again everyone, and yeah, thanks also to you, Christian, and have a good day. Thank you and goodbye.